I'm Smriti, and subscribe to the Books on Toast channel, or the Indian government will spy on all of us.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Books on Toast channel. Myself, Sharon.
Myself, Smriti. Hello, nice to meet you.
Please go ahead, Smriti.
Should we do this again?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Books on Toast channel. Myself, Sharon.
Myself, Smriti, and I am also Sun Reads, for those who don't know.
And if you don't know, what are you doing here? True Books on Toast fans know Smriti very well. Smriti has been one of our longest champions and oft called guest on this show. She has done many videos with us. And she also has her own YouTube channel and Bookstagram account called Sant Reads. So if you don't know this, please dig your head out of the sand and follow Sant Reads. Welcome, Smriti, to our channel.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you. My second home.
Which is your first home?
Either this one where I have two Groots.
Well, I have flowers. You have Groots.
Very nice.
Very nice. That's good to know. So Smriti, why are you very traditional today? What is the secret?
I am very traditional today because I thought that we would talk about Indian authors.
This is an Independence Day special video. Hence, Smriti is in her Desi avatar and she's very happy to represent our nation and its diverse cultures, which is why she loves to read lit with Indian lit and lit and all that literary thingies, litanies that she's constantly involved in. And we also have to tag along because Indian lit is a lit scene. Okay.
It is a lit scene.
It is a lit scene indeed. And today's video, because it is Independence Day week here in India, we decided to do a video on some of our favorite contemporary Indian authors. As opposed to talking about singular books by many authors, we just decided to talk about authors themselves. So before we get into that, Smriti, let me ask you our hygiene question. What are you reading right now?
Oh, Sharon, I must tell you, I'm reading a literary masterpiece. No, I'm reading rom-com. It's called Shipped by Angie Hockman. It's basically about this marketing girl who works for this adventure cruises, and she is up for a promotion, but she is also being there's another guy who's also up for the same promotion, so they are sent on a cruise. And over there, romance hota hai. So it is compared to Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren and The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So it's like a combination of them both, and I love those both books. So right now I'm doing great. I'm really liking it. What are you reading right now, Sharon?
I've read actually literary fiction. Very long time. It is a debut work of fiction by Anindita Ghosh, who is the former editor of Mint Lounge, and this is her much celebrated book that everybody on the internet is talking about. And everybody on newspapers, our newspaper world and festival world are also talking about. This is going to be the book of the year, guys. Book of the year, right here.
We're calling it right now.
You guys heard it here. It is definitely one of those token novels which will make it.
I have no idea what it's about, but I'm sure it will be.
It is Illuminated.
It is Illuminated. Okay.
It is a traditional story about a mother and a daughter and how they are coming to grips with the reality in a world where the main man in their life has passed away, and what that means for both these women who have to sort of reconnect with their past and also reconnect with their present to sort of make a future. A lot of Indian authors have done similar-ish works in the last few years, if you guys know what I'm talking about. And most of them have not really held water because somewhere the story goes elsewhere, right? This is holding my attention because the narrative is strong. It's not just about these two women, it's also about many other things. So I will tell you what I think about it once I'm through it. So yeah, this is a good book. It's a good book of literary fictions. Coming back to our main objective of this video, we're going to talk to you about 6 authors and at least 2 of their books that you guys should read that we recommend highly. And we'll also give you a rating of whether these are for beginners or if it is an intermediate read or if it is for advanced readers, so that you know before you're picking up what you're really getting into.
Correct.
You, you know. So why don't you start us off since you are the guest and all, Smriti?
I'm going to start off with our favorite Jhumpa Lahiri. Jhumpa Lahiri is, of course, the favorite of many. She has written many books, won the Pulitzer, and she's generally an award-winning author. She basically writes literary fiction, but she also writes a lot of short stories. Short stories is one of her main fortes. And personally, I think that she writes very simply, but her writing is very like evocative. It sort of gives you like an understanding of what is happening in the world, so she sort of like paints a very nice picture. And it talks a lot about like immigration and because she is a first generation Indian in the US, and then now she is in Italy because she decided that she's just going to, she loves the language, so she moved to Italy, has learned the language, and now writes only in Italian, and then translates her own works as well as others back to English. I don't know, man. Like these people, sometimes I'm just like, thoda sa overachieving you are in life, but it's fine. I appreciate it because she writes good stuff. So my favorite, I would suggest, is Unaccustomed Earth, because it is a short story collection. But also in the end, there is a collection of stories which are sort of interconnected. So it's a huge bulk of, like, it's a very big short story, so like a novella of sorts. So you kind of get a mix of both. And the other that I would suggest is another short story collection. I think she does short stories really well,
She does.
which is Interpreter of Maladies, which was the book that she won. I think it was a debut book, right?
Yeah.
Which won the Pulitzer. So yeah, that is my recommendation. I think that she is a beginner. Like beginner readers can totally get into it because she writes very simply. So like you can definitely get into it and understand everything. And I don't think you need to be like intimidated by anything that she writes.
That is true. Also, little trivia, her novel, The Namesake, was turned into a movie, which also won many awards, right? Didn't it?
Oh God, it should. I don't know if it won any awards, but it should have. It really must. It is one of those movies which I feel like was the best cast, like the most perfect cast.
Yeah.
Aha,
Aha. Great,
aha.
great book and movie to read.
Correct.
Yes.
Movie to
Great
book
book to
to
watch
read.
and movie to read. Yes. That is.
Correct.
In a similar vein, thanks to Smriti's first recommendation of a female Indian origin author, I'm also going to talk about a female Indian origin author. Her name is Kiran Desai. And she also, similar to Jhumpa Lahiri, has written about the Indian diaspora experience overseas and in India. And Kiran Desai and Jhumpa Lahiri are often confused for being one another, just like how Meera Nair and Deepa Mehta are sometimes confused to be like each other.
One and the
You
same.
know, yeah, it's the same person, guys. Same person writing in different peoples. Okay, just letting you know. One is pen name, the other one is a regular person. Okay. Wow, just change my lighting for effect. Don't get
Wow.
okay.
Because it's the same person.
So anyway, Kiran Desai is a fantastic author. Unfortunately, she has only written two books. One came out in 1998, and the other one came out in 2006. After which she hasn't written for a really long time, and I'm wondering why. So I'm actually calling her out so that I hope she watches this. And I don't know which planet, but I hope Kiran Desai, if you are still interested in being an author, you please watch this video and please write me a book. Thanks, for me, assigned to Sharon only. Okay, thanks. Anyway, so the reason I'm bringing her up is that she has her second novel, which was called The Inheritance of Loss. The very very evocative title that we'd like to throw at many poems in block titles all the time because it is so lyrical and interesting in its approach. It won us the Man Booker Prize in 2006 as well. And she is also the daughter of Anita Desai, who is also a very accomplished writer herself. I haven't read much Anita Desai. I've just read one book called In Custody, which was phenomenal. Kiran Desai's books also, even though they were written in the early 2000s and the late 90s, really feel like they would have been written today, because they really represent a spirit which is, which is just timeless. So Kiran Desai's novel, The Inheritance of Loss, is largely about two people and their families. And it's the themes that run in this novel is basically about being extremely anglicized as an Indian person who wants to, like live in Western ideals. And on the other hand, it's about a really Indian person who illegally immigrates to America and tries to really carve out a life for himself there. So it's the conflict between these two types of Indias, which she portrayed in this novel, which she wrote so beautifully. And it really brings the Indian summer alive. I love novels that really bring Indian summers alive, because there is something to be said about this like really bad humid heat, but also the amaltas when they're in bloom. Only Indians really love it. And this is, for me, it's like an afternoon read. I will sit all afternoon and read this, cry my eyes out, really feel all those feelings. The kind of language that she writes in really transports you to a world like that. So, which is why this is a great Kiran Desai book to read. The other book that I want to talk about that she has written, which is the only other book she has written, is called Hullabaloo in the Guava Orchard. Hullabaloo in the Guava Orchard. And it's a really funny novel. It is so easy. You will finish it in an hour or two max. You will not be able to put it down. It's the story of this one guy who refuses to become an adult and decides to live his life under a guava orchard, and that's pretty much it. And she actually based on a real life incident that happened sometime in India, where a man decided to live on the top of a tree for 15 years just because he was escaping the drama that was happening in his life. So she just took that incident and fictionalized it, and it is just brilliant. You will love everything about it. That somebody in India can write so wittily about such a stupid thing, but so amazing, is just phenomenal to me. It's mind bending. And if I talk about the reading difficulty level of both these books, beginner, you will ace it. You will love every second of both these novels.
Amazing.
Come on, Smriti. Oh, just
Okay.
a side note. During the time when being an author was cool and popular in the Indian ecosystem, and JLF was still new and all, there was this whole rumor that was spread that Oran Pamuk, the man who wrote Snow, if
Yeah.
everybody knows him, and Kiran Desai were having this roaring love affair, and everybody was talking about it. Bloggers were talking about it.
Oh.
News media was talking about it. They were apparently spotted in Goa and spotted in Kasoli and stuff like that. So
Ooh
yeah,
la
it was,
la.
imagine they actually, like, this story became like popular culture and entertainment. Must mean that Kiran Desai had like a lot to say, and she's just like an amazing author. I really wish she writes something more again.
Another author who I wish wrote more is Jerry Pinto.
Okay.
Um, Jerry Pinto also has written just two books, but he has translated many, which I absolutely love him for. So I go to him not only for his books that he writes, but also the books that he translates. I think that all of them have been amazing, and I have read, if not all, most at least. So Jerry Pinto is Bombay born and bred, and he has written many books, mostly about mental health. So the book that I started off with was M and the Big Hoom, which I would definitely recommend. It is basically about a boy who's slightly grown up now, like maybe like college, first job, sort of like early 20s, and about how he deals with his mother, who has bipolar syndrome and suffers from just a lot of depression and all of that sort of stuff, and basically being the caretaker of a person who's clearly going through it. I thought that it was done so well, and it's because Jerry Pinto himself took from his own experiences of having been that person for his mother. So I just thought that this book was spectacular, and I think that he writes really, really well. He also translates superbly. So he translates mostly from Marathi, but now I hear he's also translating from Hindi. So I'm going to recommend a translation that he's done, if that's fine.
Yes.
Um, So because I feel like translators also put a bit of them into their translations. So the one that I would like to recommend is Cobalt Blue by Sachin Kundalkar, which was translated by Jerry Pinto. So, fun fact, Sharon, you think that authors do not see videos? They do, because Sachin Kudalkar saw my video which I spoke about, Cobalt Blue, and he was like, "Yes, I am going to make it into a movie."
Oh,
So,
oh,
yeah, it
oh,
was crazy. I was like, "What is happening?" It
oh.
was amazing. Anyway, but Cobalt Blue is a queer book. Um, about basically this brother and sister who fall in love with the same guy who is like a paying guest in their house, and we get to see the perspective from the brother side and then the sister side, and we see how they both deal with their own relationships and basically what happened through that. It is just really simply written again, and just wonderful to read. Also very very simple. So if I have to say in terms of like reading capabilities, etc., again beginner stage, but just both stunning books. Please do read. Yes,
Jerry, please write more books. Thanks.
Jerry, please,
Yes.
please.
This is author number 4. Since you spoke about translations, this segue to talk about a heavily translated author whose books at least I would not have read, and non-Malayalam speaking people would not have read had it not been translated. So thank you, translations and translator. Okay. This is KR Meera. She's a writer from Kerala, and she's also a heavily decorated author. She has won the Kendra Sahitya Academy Award, the Kerala Sahitya Academy Award, and some 2 other awards which I can't pronounce. But she's written really liberally throughout her life, and she has written some 10 to 12 novels, all in Malayalam, and slowly, I'm so glad that they are slowly being translated to English. She mostly works with this journalist friend of hers. She used to be a journalist. KR Meera used to be a journalist, and then she became an author. And her works from Malayalam to English are mostly translated by another journalist friend of hers called J Devika, who does a fantastic job. Now, I don't speak Malayalam, and hence I can't read in Malayalam, so I've not read the original text, but I don't feel like I'm missing any cultural nuances by reading these books, because they really feel like they were written by the author in English, which is a huge thing if you have read translations, because so many things get lost, and that's something that we often crib about. So there are 2 novels that I want to talk about that she has written. One is called Hangwoman, and just conceptually such a powerful idea. It is the story of a very reluctant heroine called Chetna, who is inheriting the family job of being a hang woman. All the men in her family were hangmen for centuries, from the 4th century onwards in Calcutta. Think about the layers in this story. KR Meera, is a Malayalam author. She's written in Malayalam about a Bengali family in Calcutta who are inheriting the title of being hang woman ki saza. They are the ones carrying it out. And it falls on the shoulders of this young 23-year-old girl called Chetna, who's a reluctant heroine of this novel. It's very psychologically dark. She's dealing with the trauma of being somebody who has to carry out these things. She's a strong character. She's not saying no to it. She'll carrying it out, but it's the way it is written, the story that emerges, and her own personal struggles, which just get swept under the rug. Because if you're a strong and independent person, and you are a lone woman in an all man's domain, suddenly you're not supposed to have feelings. So I love that KR Meera takes this deep idea that women, at the end of the day, should be allowed to be vulnerable, even if they're put on these high pedestals. I will warn you, it is not an easy read. It is an intermediate read. It's very, very dark. It's very interesting. The story is very gripping. And you also see it from Chetna's perspective. That's the voice in your head constantly as you read this novel, and it'll change you as a human being. It's amazing. I'm just like in awe of KR Meera's work ever since. And so I read another collection of short stories that she had written called Yellow is the Color of Longing. And it is a collection of 15 stories, all around the themes of feminism. But some are extremely witty, some are extremely sad, some are super dark, some are just really naughty. And you're just like, what? Like, it's just like all sides of women, right? Like coming together without this being in your face that this is feminist literature. It's just remarkable how subtle and beautifully written it is, and also again just gorgeously translated. It's super easy to read because these are short stories, so this is like for beginners.
Final author for me has to be Mr. Vikram Seth, who is another person who I wish wrote more, including one particular book which I think has been pending for 25 years now, sir. Please write it. We are waiting for a suitable girl. But Vikram Seth is an amazing author. Like, he writes basically literary fiction, but he also writes a lot of poetry. Poetry, unfortunately, isn't my thing. So I haven't really read too much of his poetry, though I do have all of it. But so hopefully I will get to it at some point of time. But he writes literary fiction, and he writes historical fiction, and he writes some really good fiction, essentially. But the book of his, which obviously is his most famous, is A Suitable Boy, which was made into a Netflix series featuring Tabu and other people. And it was, I don't know if it was a hit on Netflix, but it was a
Not
hit.
in our world.
Not in our world, yes, correct. But it was a hit book. The book was a
It
hit.
was a hit. Yes, yes. Hit.
Amazing. Full big hit.
Hit. Not hit. Hit.
Yeah. So it is 1,500 pages long, but only
Is this the size of, say, maybe these 3 books together?
I have it right here. Wait.
Yes, yes. It is this big. This
It is
thick.
this big.
It is a this thickness. Okay.
It is this thick. And by the way, this thick is only 1 year.
Yeah, yes, it is only 1 year.
But honestly, while I was reading this book, I was like, I wish he wrote more about these people, because essentially what we are following is the Mehra family. So we follow the matriarch of the Mehra family, who is trying to find her daughter a suitable boy, and through them we are introduced to many other families, and this book is set in the 1950s, right after our independence, so in this fictional city called Brahmapur. And we basically follow them, we follow the politics, we follow a lot of other people, and it is just the most amazing, intriguing, brilliant read. And I've always said that Vikram Seth is like genius. The index, like the chapter index, is a poem.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, he's next level, like cuckoo crazy, amazing. So yeah, so this is a book which a lot of people get very like intimidated to get into it, because obviously, like, look at it, but it is so good. Another book that I would recommend is The Golden Gate, by him, which is his first ever novel. It is written in verse. So he started writing in verse before like everyone else did. So basically, the book is about these people in the US. So they're not like Indian or anything like that, from what I remember, but it's basically following their lives and their loves and all of that sort of stuff. And it's a little dated, just a little, because it's set in the 1980s and it was written a while ago. But what you have to appreciate is just like his like the way that he writes, because when I was reading the book, I read it once, like I would read one part once for just like what is happening, and then I would read it again to like just appreciate like how he wrote it all in verse. It was just absolutely fabulous to read. I think he took like 7 years to write it. So he is yeah, so this book, like Vikram said, I would say is like intermediary to little bit advanced, like somewhere in between that. But I would still say, no, don't get intimidated by him, because he writes some fantastic worlds and fantastic characters that will stay with you forever.
Last Indian author that I would really like to recommend, who is a master of the craft, is Amitav Ghosh. And I know that I keep speaking about him pretty much as I speak about Salman Rushdie. It's just I just love everything Amitav Ghosh writes, but except for the last novel. But I don't want to talk about that one. I'm a big fan of history and historical fiction, and possibly why I really like his work is because he mostly is a master of historical fiction, and he writes most of his stories are set in Bengal, in Burma, a little bit in Bihar, Malaysia, Thailand. So, if you are curious about what has happened to that part of the world, he has given some really interesting detailing about what the lives of people really looked like when they lived through some of the biggest like colonial atrocities committed in India during that time. So yeah, so he is also very heavily decorated author. He has won the Padma Shri, the Sahitya Academy Award, and also he is, I think, one of the few authors who writes in English who has won the Gyanpith Award, which is the highest honor that an Indian author can win in the Indian literary ecosystem. There are many books that he's written. Of course, I've spoken about his Ibis trilogy in our previous historical fiction podcast with Kumar Varun, so I don't want to repeat talking about that again. And also, that is being turned into a series by Shekhar Kapoor. Hopefully, it'll come out soon. That'll be interesting to see. But I do want to talk about two books that I heavily recommend for people who are beginner readers because his stuff is a little intermediate to advanced. So the one, no, I would like to recommend one nonfiction book by him called In an Antique Land, which is basically um, so he was doing a doctoral thesis for which he had gone to do some research in Cairo, and there he discovered in something called the Cairo Geniza, which is something that was discovered in Cairo in the 18th century. These manuscripts and letters written in papyrus about Jewish migrants who lived during that time in the Middle East and in North Africa, just what their lives were like. This was found in a storeroom in a Geniza in Cairo. So those manuscripts are like now treasure. So he was rummaging through that, and he found this correspondence between a Jewish merchant and slaves from India. And those were like literally, some of them were written like love letters to each other. Like, the slaves really missed being with this Jewish merchant. It's so weird. Like, this is a different world and a different like time altogether. The slave misses the master misses the slave, so they are writing to each other like they're lovers. It's very weird. You put together what Jewish merchant trade was like in the 12th century, and also what the lives of Indian slaves were like, and what the hell Indian slaves were doing in Cairo. It's just weird. Okay, just read it. It's very fascinating. The other book that I want to talk about is one of his most celebrated novels. It's called The Glass Palace. And if you are interested in this whole world, which was called the Malay Peninsula, which is parts of parts of Malaysia, southern Thailand, and southern Burma. That part was called the Malay Peninsula. Okay. And there was like a full kingdom and a dynasty there that was, of course, dethroned and destroyed by the British. So he's basically crafted this novel called The Glass Palace. It's written from the perspective of families who had privilege, who were basically noble lords, like the equivalent of earls, maybe in England. It's these noble families and what happens to their lives and what happens to their lands and what happens to their politics and societal norms and stuff, like what happens to lovers and societies in general, right? Like when things start crumbling around them, because there's a whole kingdom and a dynasty that is being slowly destroyed by the Britishers.
Wow, very cool, Sharon.
Yes, very cool. I know I'm Amitav Ghosh. Thanks.
We are all the same.
They're all the same. And of course, like his most famous book is, of course, besides the Ibis trilogy, is The Shadow Lines,
That's
which
right.
I don't want to talk much about, but that also that captures the Indian independence movement in the background of this one guy's story. So that is the book that actually got him the Sahitya Academy Puraskar, which is also a great book to read. But I don't want to recommend it during this because I feel Glass Palace is a better one. But if you are interested, this is another additional book you might want to read.
Correct. Because partition and 15th August.
Yes, oh yes, partition and 15th August, yes, in the spirit of things.
Correct.
Good job at being patriotic.
Yes, thank you very much.
I feel like if you ever write a book, no, your pen name should be Sant Reads.
It'll be like S Sant. Or Sant, no, it will be Sant Reads only. Correct.
Maybe it could be Sant Writes.
Sant Writes, that's what I was going to say, yes.
But you could be cool, you could make it RITE because it's also a writing.
I am right all the time, correct.
If you want to really celebrate independence and be patriotic, please read any of these books that we recommended to you or discover new Indian authors that you find are very interesting. And please let us know in the comment section and we'll be sure to pick them up and like pick not the authors up, but their books up and read. Okay. Yes. It is ultimately to
pick up authors, but you can pick them up theoretically by reading their books and reading Indian language books.
Okay, thank you everybody for watching once again. Please follow Smriti at Sant Reads, and you can also find us Books on Toast on every platform there is out there, including Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Though on Twitter we are Books on Tea because we only like to spill the tea. Okay, anywho. So yeah, keep reading and please subscribe to the channel. Okay, thanks.
Okay, yes. Okay, bye.
Crazy mother.